you. That's all I got. I'm empty.
Alright. Oh crap, we didn't update the episode thing. Welcome everyone to episode 77, not 76, of Cast in the Shadows.
Soy the greenest people.
Last week we were playing Siege of Orison live. We actually completed it.
Why?
It was one of Cam's few completion attempts at the event too.
I think at this point I've done it twice in about 15 attempts. Yeah, that's something good.
I think I've done it 5 out of 7 completion.
Oh, look at this guy.
Well, the problem is I never actually, like, with the exception of the time we played, I never actually made it to the admin platform. It always got completed before I got there.
Oh yeah, I'd take that.
I'm hearing that's a common complaint, is that
Most people don't.
They're saying the way that the whole event was created, that there's no communication of what's going on, so a lot of players are kind of like wandering around, not knowing kind of like what objectives have been completed, what needs to be done, and so they're like wandering off in random directions, and all of a sudden, you know, a totally separate group has already reached the end, and it's like, oh, mission's over, and people are just standing around like, well, what just happened? Like, why is the mission over? Like, nobody knows why things are happening, kind of a issue.
I mean, you have the objectives on your HUD, but yeah, you don't know where to go. And especially towards the end, okay, like say you do manage to find your way to the other platforms where you have to kill the guys there and then, you know, deal with all the hostiles there and the IFF inverter there. Okay, getting to the admin platform's a pain in the butt and really impossible to do solo. And yeah, without that communication, you're not getting there. Most people never experience the end of the mission. I know I haven't yet.
Yeah. I'm also hearing that the way the AI spawn is really kind of not conducive to group mechanics. It's kind of people are realizing that the best way to deal with it is to actually spread out, but that then creates that communication problem.
Also, one of the problems that you guys are.
No, I was just saying, as I understand it, the way the AI are spawning is kind of like there's predetermined places, and it's kind of one of those things where, like, you know, you hit a certain invisible checkpoint, and all of a sudden they just spawn like behind you, around you, and so it's not very good, I guess.
So I don't know if it's checkpoint based or wave based, because I know on a couple events it seems like they just spawn randomly, but on another one I was in, they would the announcer would say, "We've got another wave of bandits incoming," and then you would get a wave.
Gotcha.
On foot or in the air? Because bandits would be airborne hostiles. At least
No, I'm probably using the wrong word, but
okay.
they were saying, "We've got another wave of incoming. We need to get the IFF switched off or whatever, or they're going to keep landing," or something like that.
Okay. And I mean, it could have no real reference. It could just be flavor text kind of thing.
Oh, I know 100% when they said that enemies spawned out of their elevators and closets and stuff.
Surprise, bitch.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of video of, like, you know, people are wandering through an area, and they hit a point, and all of a sudden they turn and look, and they're like, there's an AI there, and they're like, where the fuck did that guy just come from? Like, you know, that kind of a spawning issue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like they cleared the area, but then they hit a certain point, and all of a sudden the AI spawns, and they're like, I know I just cleared that area, but now there's an AI, you know, there, and oh, there's another one over here, and it's like,
one of the problems.
You know,
one of the problems I was telling Cam earlier was how, like, just earlier today, I was doing Siege of Orison. I was on the roof of one of the buildings, and all of a sudden I had 2 AI in front of me. Okay, like I see them coming at me, and he went from being my 12:30 to just teleporting to my 3 o'clock and then being at my 5 o'clock, and I was instantly incapacitated. And that's something I've been having an issue more with, is that AI can like teleport.
Yeah.
Another
I
issue
have
is
heard that's an
another issue is like sometimes you can put like 20 FS9 bullets into an unarmored guy, like because some of the guys are literally in just clothes, and they're still up, and they're still firing at you.
Rounds.
But then after you go down, they just die because it finally registered that you killed. So at least you get paid,
Yeah,
but
but
now you're down.
That's just the server struggling
Yes.
to keep up with everything going
sync
on.
issues.
But it's still an issue nonetheless.
Me saying this, but it definitely seems like for a lot of mechanics that they're putting in, at least at this stage, CIG goes much more for the stick rather than the carrot. For example, hey, we want people to go and test out our looting system. Okay, we're going to go and take all snipers, LMGs, and any kind of heavy weapons. You can only get them in loot crates. And then if I remember right, one of the patch notes for one of the 3.17.2, one of the early patches, said, oh yeah, we fixed an issue where no snipers, LMGs, or heavy weapons would spawn in the loot lists. And it was like, what the fuck, guys? You made this so this is the only way you can get it, and then you fucked that part up too, to the point where now you can't get it.
You have a new backer, Cam?
I mean,
Have you
in
not,
the notes
have you
they
not been
fixed the
introduced
bug, so
to CIG? I mean, that's the way they've always done it, is go way overboard, too hard, where you've got like
maybe drop back a bit.
Yeah, remember when they first introduced pirate caterpillars interdicting? You had you couldn't go more than like 25 feet without suddenly being, having a caterpillar spawn in front of you and try and kill you. And it was that way for like 3 months, and then it finally dialed back to like, now only 7 of them show up. And then 6 months later it was okay, maybe every 5th jump you might find one. Like that's
Nowadays
just,
it's like every 100 or something.
yeah.
It still happens from what I've heard, but
Yeah.
just
No, I agree with you. Like that's been their pattern for a long time, is to always overdo it and then dial it back. But it takes a long time for that dialing.
it's just to me it's just very, very worrisome, because it's like I want to enjoy playing the game. I don't want, because like Amanda was talking earlier, he was like, well, I kind of want to do Siege of Orison, but I'm doing inventory management now, and it's like the game should not be doing chores to get to gameplay. Like now, yes, we want there to be planning involved and being able to be like, hey, I can pack my backpack however I want with whatever items I want in there, but the game should not be a chore before you get to gameplay.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to spend an hour getting ready to go play.
Yeah, and then you're like, hey, all I had was an hour to play here. I mean, for example, one thing I was talking with someone else about was like, if you're like, hey, I want to go and do some cave mining with some buddies, and I got a constellation. Okay, first off, let me go and buy everyone some tractor beams and multi-tools, multi-tools and mining attachments. Okay, got that. I got the other FPS gear we'll need. Okay, cool. Let me go and get that on my ship. Okay, it's on the ship. Great. Okay, we're all going to meet this one location. Oops, one guy had a crime stat, or he's in the wrong area. Okay, let's wait half an hour for him to get here. Okay, they're finally here. Okay, great. We're all on board now. It's been 2 hours, 2.5 hours to get to this point. We take off and someone goes and pad rams you, or otherwise just fucks your shit up with decides to just come along with an Eclipse and shove an S9 up your ass. Oops, sorry. That was all you had. All right, I guess that's it for me. All that time wasted. There needs to be a counter to some of this ridiculousness. I don't know how that would look or what would need to be done, but it's definitely a bit too ridiculous at this point.
Yeah, I mean, to use another example is a while back ago, a CIG dev was on record as saying, yeah, we want it to the point where you can actually, you're putting individual bullets into magazines. And I just recently heard a couple of veterans who were talking about the game. And they're like, that's the worst thing you could ever possibly do to this game. Like that, real world soldiers absolutely hate loading magazines, because that's like, other than picking up grass, it's the most tedious, boring thing you could possibly have to do, and it just sucks. And for some game developer to think, yeah, that's realistic, let's do it, that's not creating fun. That's bad game design.
Exactly.
If they put that
and I will say though, I'm open to the idea of being able to load your own makes, because honestly, it does open gameplay options. But,
yeah, but just
the way
something
they do it, I mean, it can't
something
be,
along the lines of like, I want this magazine loaded with every 5th round of tracer, and it just automatically loads it.
yeah, being able
Right.
to set, like if I can set a template and go, as long as I have the rounds, blah, 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 here's 10 mags all loaded with
Yeah.
my pattern.
And maybe there's a delay, so you hit load and it takes 10 seconds, and then it goes boop, magazine's ready for you to use, kind of a thing. Like, that's fine. But to actually have to sit there and go through an actual action,
like play an animation for
mouse
each
click
bullet
process. Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna gouge my eyes out at that point.
Oh wait, I gotta switch inventory to find that incendiary round. Oh, okay, found it now.
Yeah, like you have to sit there with,
no.
Okay, I have 4 different types of bullets in my one mag. I have 4 different boxes with each of the different ammo types in there. Reach into one, get a single bullet in the inspection. Okay, now put it. No, put it in. No, put it. Okay, now it's in. Okay, now
where's
grab
the action to put the gun to my head and pull trigger?
I'm sorry, you didn't load any bullets in that magazine. But yeah, they need to make it fun. We keep going. Yeah, we go to realistic and then bring it to fun. We need to bring it to fun. We're approaching realistic for a lot of stuff. We need to bring it to fun here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we are still in the alpha.
Oh yeah,
but yeah,
I mean,
indeed.
I think they'll get it done. It's gonna be a rough and bumpy process.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, as we're seeing with the medical gameplay stuff, like look, Death of a Spaceman, we all wanted it. It was a really cool idea, but implementation right now, it feels like a punishment. It's very, because for testing purposes, it hinders you, because now you can't do anything without the fear of losing all your shit, not because I'm doing something stupid to test something, or I got shot and killed because I'm horrible, I'm just not good at FPS.
Something risky.
It's because I stepped on a rock wrong, or because this AI was teleporting around due to a bad server, or magazine server issues causing your magazine not to load, so you have no rounds in your gun when you think you do, and it's like all these various issues. Like the last week, every time I got downed, every single time, with the exception of one, which I died and not got down, so every time I got incapacitated, I should say, it was due to a server issue, or due to some game bug, not me being an idiot, me going like, I can take this guy out, and then get my ass handed to me. Like, no, it's the game decided to have a hiccup, and I had to suffer the consequences for it.
Yep.
And that's why I'm like, okay, look, it's been almost a year since they implemented the medical Death of a Spaceman gameplay. Like, you have almost a year's worth of data from all this testing. Remove it for a little bit, because at the moment it's way too early. I think everyone I've talked to, with the exception of maybe like one person, everyone agrees it's too early to have this sort of system in right now. Like, but keep the inventory stuff, because we always complain about the inventory, but what we don't I've seen very few people talk about. Well, yes, the inventory system is bad, and it does need to be made to a higher level. That's what you'd expect from an inventory system in a game today. But it is still better than
the opposite point here. I don't think it's too early. I think it was a game system that got done, and I think they would be making a mistake if they don't stick it in with the other bits that they put together for it and see how it works in the wild. And then they can get data, figure out what's good, what's not good, and it'll help them plan the future of the way it's going to integrate and the way the systems are going to function. Because if they wait longer, then they're just delaying the amount of problems that they're going to have to figure out in the future. And this is an alpha game. I know it's said over and over and over, but the point is when they get something done and it's finished to a certain degree, they got to stick it in and see what works and what doesn't.
Indeed.
And then they can fix it. But delaying it, even for, I agree that it can be punishing at times, but delaying it would be a mistake because you're just adding extra work that you're going to have to do in the future that you could be figuring out now.
In my opinion, again, sorry.
Let me I'll just throw this in. Sorry, Cam. I kind of agree with what Data's saying, but I also think that Mando's pointing out he's pointing at something. Maybe he's not. How do I say this? I think what the bigger problem is that they put in a mechanic that's half baked, and then they just leave it. And what they need to be doing is kind of what Data's saying, which is they do need to be putting these things in. But then what they need to be doing is actually following through with updating it and making fixes to it throughout the process. So like the medical system, rather than just putting it in and, for the past year, okay, so you initially spent some time, got your data points from it on what needs to be tweaked, but then they never actually did that. And that's what they need to start doing, is actually taking action after they've got their data points to start tweaking that system through to improve it and get it better and better.
And to add to what you're saying,
serious issue.
Add what you're saying, I think the only fix they've done for the medical gameplay was because it was added in 3.15, which was at the end of last year.
Yeah, I'm just picking the medical system as an example, but I think if you point at almost any system they put in...
Agreed. I'm just saying, but with the medical system specifically, the only fix they've really done was in 3.16 or 17, I think they lowered the bleed out time, because remember in 3.15, 3.16, you bled out instantly, and you were just always down anytime you took damage. So they did lower it, but it's still very punishing, and Data, I totally agree. Like, they need to have these systems work together and see how that works out in the wild so that they can have the data to properly build the game. But my game just crashed, speaking of. But the problem...
It just seems like they put things in and walk away from them.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Well, and to build off of that too, what I was going to say was that they have medical, and they've got inventory, and they got death of a spaceman. That was 3.15, because they threw all these in, and they got, hey, there you go. And besides a few tweaks for inventory, I don't remember if if disabling the use of a med gun in the armistice zones, if that was in PTU, or if
it was in PTU.
I want to say it got out into PU before they did that. But either way, they threw it out there, and we haven't really seen much of any refinement on these things. And to my mind, the larger issue with Death of a Spaceman is there are supposed to be additional mechanics that plug in alongside of it to alleviate and lessen the impact here. Things like, hey, I should have, for example, one of the big things that we've had people yelling about here since Death of a Spaceman was put in, and we still have no resolution on it, even though they were saying, yeah, we're looking into it, but subscriber gear or any attributed account gear that you did not get in game. If I lose that, my option is a character reset. So no one uses their unique gear, or I should say very few people do. Like, oh yeah, we'll get on that, and crickets. And it's like, yeah, it's an alpha, but when you put in the punishing mechanic and you don't put in, here's all the mechanics that soften that blow that build up on there, and you just leave it, this isn't finished. This is not a good state to just go and throw at people and go, okay, bye, and run off and do something else. Therein is the issue to my thought, is that this isn't finished. This is not in a good playable state. Like, again, it seems like they put in they use the stick, but we don't really get the carrot too often here. I mean, shit,
And
look at what happened
back
last
to the
weekend.
original
Hey guys,
point.
here's some money. Noops, no, we're gonna reset that. Oops, we constantly reset your account. Yeah, okay, here's a little bit of money.
Yeah, and back to the original point, like, yes, this is an alpha. Like, this isn't like a live service bullshit. Like, this is an alpha. This is a game in development. We are just glorified play testers. The thing is, though, if you make play test, like, we're still play testers, though. We should still be able to test things without essentially torturing ourselves to an extent with things like, oh, I keep hopping to the server. The same bug keeps happening to me. Why would I keep play testing, right? Like, I report my bug and that's it, and then I log off for like 3 months until the next patch, because that's what a lot of people did. I mean, look at our org for like the last 6 months was completely inactive due to the game being in a really punishing state and no one really wanting to play with it, like the few exceptions like us and a few others. I mean, Carlson, you haven't played in a while because of it.
Well, that and the
That and
fact
your
that
computer.
my computer is like emitting smoke.
Details.
We
Yeah.
do.
But yeah,
I
I will agree that there's been times I've thought like, maybe I should play, and then I kind of look at what's going on. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not worth my playtime. It's people are the whole elevator thing is back again, and I'm like,
Yep.
that was one reason I kind of petered off for a little while way back in the the late 2s, early 3s, was that the elevators were killing me, and I was like, why spend time going into the game if the Grimhex elevator is going to kill me every time I get on it? Like, and I'm now seeing that people are having the same problem again. It's like, why is this still an issue?
And then you lose your gear because death of a spaceman.
Yep. And that's the thing too, is like, and it's not like a PTU where you start out with a bunch of money. And I understand, again, they want us to test. Okay, you start from whatever the default will be for the live game, so that you can, test all the, credits and like all the jobs and stuff to earn credits and all that. And I get that, but at the same time, for testing purposes, with the death of a spaceman, it's like, okay, so you're losing gear all the time, and it's just, again, it's too. At least with all the bugs and everything due to it being an alpha and unoptimized and all that, I just feel like it's too early of a system to be implemented in the way that it is. Like, and let's say, like, okay, here, every for this patch we added it back in for this testing thing. Okay, now we're taking it back out so that you guys can actually test everything else that we added in without the hindrance, and then repeat that process where it's constantly being added in and out. At least this way they can get that test data and have players still be able to test everything else in the game without being punished for it.
Yeah.
So I think your criticisms on their own are valid, but if you take it into context with the rest of the game, the way game development works, team scheduling, patch cycles, I think those criticisms are pretty short-sighted.
Maybe, but
possibly. I'm not a game dev, and I know you have some experience with it, so that's fair.
Well, part of the problem is in terms of game development, I agree to some amount. I agree that these are short-sighted concerns. However, they aren't just doing game development. They're doing game development and hosting the game at the same time in what they claim is a semi-playable alpha state for players to go and enjoy and run around with. Therein is the issue. If it was just game development, yeah, absolutely. Put the feature in when it's ready and leave it at there, because no one's ever going to fuck with it besides whoever your very small play tests are or your developers. But here we have thousands, millions of people that are running around on this, and if your game is a frustrating, buggy mess, no one's going to want to play this.
I think I kind of agree with both sides, but I think if you take even one more step higher up and look at the issue, I would contend that data is correct, but this is also a unique game development design in that it is including the public in the process, and because of that, you do have to take into account that there's that magic variable of you need data points, which means you need players to play. And if you don't adjust your development to allow for that when it gets too, I'm going to use a bad word for it, but when the gameplay gets too abusive, that the players don't want to actually test your environment, then you start not being able to get those data points. And I think CIG is in a unique place where they need to worry about that, whereas almost any other game development design doesn't take that into account because it's a small private group that's being used for testing.
No,
well, it sounds to me like the general consensus of at least Mando and Cam is that CIG does not take into account those sort of things, and that they're not looking at it and they just don't care. That's the feel that I get from.
No,
what
I
you're
said
saying,
it feels that way. I never said
wrong.
it does. I just said it feels that way at times because
again,
you look at the gameplay and that's
the problem.
Like that's all I can go by.
The way I think CIG is looking at it is from a game developer point of view, in that, look, we're looking 6 months, 1 year, 2 years in the future here. We know what's coming down the line, which we the player base do not, because hey, we're kind of keeping some stuff under wraps. We're going to surprise you with some stuff, things like, hey, if they were to come out with at 3.19 or 4.1, whatever it is, and go, hey guys, we added gravity-based repelling, like what I've talked about before, I'd be like, oh, awesome. Because we didn't know about this, and all of a sudden, boom, it's there and workable, whatever. But the problem with that mindset is, in the short term, the people you do want jumping in and playing the game and stuff start going, hey, I tripped down the stairs for the 20th time here. I'm no longer laughing because I'm dying and occasionally losing my gear. I'm going to stop playing now. And if that at least does not get someone addressed, yes, it's an alpha, yes, it's going to go sideways, but it's like, how long have we had this specific bug in there? A very long time, pretty much since Death of a Spaceman really came out. We've had this shit happening to where people are thrown out through elevators, people are tripping over nothing and dying. Like, it's not like these are new problems. These are old problems that don't seem to get fixed. Understanding, maybe it's stuff that, obviously with a lot of this stuff, it's not easy to go and nail down what several points are causing this, because usually it's not just one thing, it's several things acting in concert to create the issue. But again, if you want a player base to be going along with that, this is shit that needs to be done here. Because otherwise, except for your very small hardcore players, you run off all your larger game cards because they're like, fuck this shit. I can't play it at all.
I think one thing I'd like to see that might help alleviate a little bit of the issue in some way is maybe if they had, rather than some of these Star Citizen lives or the inside the Thursday episode stuff, is maybe they address like the top 5 known bugs that the players are commenting on, and say and at least address them in a way that informs us of why these things are still an issue. Not necessarily saying it's solved or it's fixed or we're working on it, but just like, hey, community feedback. We know about this, and here's why it hasn't. Here's why it's a problem that can't be solved right now.
Yeah,
or
I'd love
something
that.
along those lines would actually alleviate a lot of that player frustration of why play the game, because that same bug is still there after a year, or why the medical system hasn't been improved, or things like that. Like it even if you're not solving the problem, just communicating that yes, I'm aware it's a problem, and here's why it's a low priority for what I'm worried about. These other 200 things that I got to worry about. Like that's what they're not doing that I think would really be helpful.
No, communication has honestly probably always been one of CIG's issue points, especially when you look at back in like 2016. I mean, we had bug smashers. Now they were usually talking about bugs they fixed, but they were talking about this stuff. Right now, we get Inside Star Citizen and Calling All Devs. Inside Star Citizen is the only look we really get into the development. Calling All Devs is a little bit of here's the development process for this one very specific thing, and that's it.
Yeah.
And we don't even get Calling All Devs that often anymore. It's Star Citizen Live that's every Friday. It's not even. It's usually just some throwaway thing. Like honestly, I'd rather Star Citizen Live be the devs playing the game rather than just some like creating some fun art or something. Not that that's bad. It's just like if you're only gonna have 2 shows, make them more like they used to be, where it's actually informative and showing behind the scenes or seeing the devs play the game and their takes on things versus let's create a Pico mech that's never gonna amount to anything. What was that, Raftron or whatever it was?
We'll never get Bug Smashers back because that was the reason they got into the lawsuit with Crytek, was because of the Bug Smashers episodes. But that's why I was saying, like, they don't even need to show us like what they're doing, just if they communicate about it. And Disco basically just sits there and says, "Hey guys, here's here are the top issues that we are aware of, and here's why here's what's being done, or here's why nothing's being done until future."
Honestly, just more communication in general, because like if you were to have a show, like let's say if you had a show once a week and it was just called Top 5, and it would be split between you would have it 4 times a month, some months pending, and it would just go over things like this week's top 5, we're covering the top 5 bugs or top 5 issues people have had with the game mechanics. Here they are based on your submissions in whatever poll or whatever they put out, their thread they open up. Let's go through them and kind of talk about what's going on, what's behind them, what's causing these, where we're going with them, as much as we can share. Next week, hey, here's your top 5 types of missions, and here's what we're going to be adding. Just more communication, honestly, more communication in general. Please.
I just don't want it to be based off the polls, though, because then we're going to have stupid ideas. Maybe like longevity. Like, here's the 5 longest running problem, glitches or something. Like something that can't be voted on by stupid people to create it, where it's the jokiest bug gets the top one.
You mean like Ship Showdown? Vote. Coming up at the end of this month.
We'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that in a bit.
Not mole.
Argo.
Shit.
Argo cargo.
No, what's the new ground vehicle? The Drake one?
The mule. The
mule is probably going to be the top contender.
Oh god, that's well, before we completely forget, there were actually we have people in the chat. Megan1 says, "Hey guys, at work, but want to say hi and leave a like." Tillam29 says, "Good to see you, Casting Shadows." KT says, "Potties despawning on death is definitely bad right now." Megan1 also says, he puts a quote from Tomorrow Never Dies, saying, "Mr. Wallace, are you ready to launch our new software?" Yes, and as requested, it's full of bugs, which means people will be forced to upgrade for years. As a comment to our discussion, Star Citizen. But yeah, it's... And also, Data, I apologize if it sounded like we were piling on.
Yeah, sorry.
Chalk it up to your new celebrity.
No, it's all good. No. I think in the spectrum of criticism, I'm more on CIG side than just about anybody else here, I think.
How dare... Wait, are you concierge? I'm kidding. Don't answer.
No, you are.
Shh. Don't let them know.
Get you. They're only out to get you. If you're content... Okay, yeah, it's... Like, the bottom line is... I'm not gonna say like, oh, see, everything CIG is doing bad. Like, no, this medical gameplay thing specifically, at least the way it's being implemented, the current methodology of it is, I feel, a problem. That's all. Because like you play the game and it does feel, at least right now, like I was telling Cam earlier before we went live, that out of all the things over the last almost year regarding the medical gameplay stuff, I think Siege of Orison has definitely, at least for me, shone the brightest light on the medical gameplay's faults and how punishing it can.
Yep.
Because of like data, as you said, like server issues making AI teleport, or your magazine not loading when you reload and then you are screwed. That sort of stuff. I've been experiencing all this stuff more in Siege of Orison than before. And because Siege of Orison also like AI, you never know where they are, and that's the whole point. Like you're in urban combat, you have to be aware at all times. But when the game is having glitches that cause you to essentially die because, well, that gun didn't actually reload, even though you reloaded it 7 times now. Or
3.
That AI over there, like last night, I had an AI spawn in front of me. Like he was not there. I was getting shot at. There was nothing there, and then all of a sudden, an AI just spawned right there, right in front of me. I was able to take him out, thankfully, but like, I imagine that's not the only time that's happened.
I want to point out something as well that also I think in the past couple years, you've seen a lot of the mechanics that have been being developed into the game. The game has gone much. What started out as kind of very ship-centric gameplay, for what was available, gameplay, it will be the term. But in the last 2 years, everything's gotten very much more about like the player first-person shooter mechanics becoming more involved. And I'm not saying that's a negative or a positive. I'm just saying it's a focus, and I think that has also, because of that, it's changed the way that people play the game. And we don't necessarily. So before it was more about like, hey, I'm going to get in a ship and fly around. Maybe we shoot each other, but there wasn't a whole lot of reason to be out of your ship. But now that you've got inventories and you got missions that are ground bunker centric, you've got a lot more of that focus towards that gameplay specifically. And there's not a whole lot to do when you're in a ship anymore. I mean, other than I'm going to go to Yellow Belt and track down an AI pirate. That's about it. Like you don't see players just kind of randomly hanging out around a moon shooting each other in ships. It like that's not an average gameplay session anymore.
To be fair though, I remember them kind of addressing some of the stuff of, hey, let's say if I'm crossing Pyro to get to a system on the other side, I forgot what's on the other side of Pyro there, but I think there's more than one jump point. But if I'm just crossing Pyro, so we're talking long distance excursion, and I'm literally just going from point A to point B. I don't care about what's in Pyro. I'm going through Pyro, and even right now, if I'm quantum jumping from Microtech over to ArtCorp, I'm sitting there doing nothing for 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, something like that. Now, sure, I can get up out of my chair, I can walk on my ship, maybe I'll do some inventory management if I've got some stuff.
You just fell out.
Yeah,
of the ship. Sorry,
but one of the things they talked about was later on, and I'm assuming this is going to be after the physics refactoring with ships to where components are actually a part of ships. Ships don't go and instantly explode when they get damaged to a certain point. They get disabled. I'm assuming after that point, they're saying, yeah, you're going to have things like, hey, I need to do ship maintenance on at least pull a subcomponent out, check it, make sure it's good. And we've seen some of the NPC like animations and logic going into that, to where the NPC crewman goes over, opens up the compartment, pulls out the part, looks at it, scratches their head, and goes, is it supposed to be that color? Puts it back and closes it. And I think some of that kind of stuff will fill in that void, because no, absolutely, I think FPS style gameplay has really gone and become the focal point, and ships have fallen to the wayside to some degree, and I don't think that's going to change until we get these advancements in the ship technology that allows them to add these further things under. I mean, even just decorating your ship. I mean, once they allow for hangar flare to be put in both hangars and eventually in ships, as they talked about previously, I'm assuming this is still the case. You know, put a poster up or put a table somewhere, etc. People spend, I mean, honestly, just, here's all my shit in a crate in my Carrack. I'm going to line every single hallway in Star Kitten posters. Fuck it. That's what you want to do.
Yeah.
To the abject horror of everyone who comes on board.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think what I was just trying to point out is that right now, like for essentially kind of like the last year, maybe 2 years, I think there's just I think the community base or the reason why you're seeing so much, I don't know, maybe it's the wrong word, but frustration out of the player base is simply because everyone is focusing on that player-based game style. Player meaning the player out of his ship on the ground.
The player
kind of
character,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, player character. And those mechanics that we've been talking about are not filled out, so people are kind of just, you know, they're only focusing on one slice of the pie and kind of going, this is very frustrating. Not while the other part of the pie, i.e., you know, the spaceships and flying around stuff, isn't getting as much focus, so people aren't kind of averaging
Talking
out
about
the
it as
experience,
much?
I guess. Sorry, what?
People aren't using ships as much as they had been before, and because of that,
Yeah, the focus is on the PvP side, I guess. Is that PvP is probably, it's the wrong word, but you know, that first person shooter experience, I guess, is all I'm trying to get at.
yeah, no,
But
honestly, I agree.
you brought up a good point though, Cam, about like what's going to happen when we're moving, you know, when we're just basically quantuming, and it made me think. I think one thing I would like to see also, including everything that you were talking about, which is getting up and going and doing your stuff. I'd also like to see like sensors and data collecting be something that might be have some kind of profitability attached to it. So the sense that like, hey, I'm going to go while I'm quantuming across the system, I'm going to go get my you know, my sensor chair, and I'm just going to start scanning to collect data, and maybe, you know, maybe it's only worth a few creds, but it's something that you can do that maybe has you know, has its mini game attachment process that keeps you occupied and
Yeah.
earns you a couple of credits while you're doing it. So at least while you're in that dead zone, you've got something to focus on.
No, I don't know if something like that would necessarily require a data running ship, like where you have dedicated data storage on there. But
Oh no.
I definitely like the idea of I'm just skimming by in a Caterpillar doing my cargo run. I'm chilling in the cockpit here. You know, let's open up the sensors, because one of the things too they talked about when they were talking about the scanning improvements and how they were adding an FPS scanning, which I think we're hopefully getting sometime next year, maybe. Was that they wanted to have not drones, probes, I think was the phrase they used. They want to give ships probes, and this will be something that all ships will have to some degree or another, and that you would be able to dial these in for either very, very wide, like you send this out and it scans the whole system, but it's only going to find very, very large things. Like if there was a huge battle and all the wrecks are still there, okay, that's going to show up. Planets will show up, maybe space stations. Anything smaller than that, you're probably not going to get. Or you dial in that resolution and it hits a much, much smaller area, but it gives you a much more refined amount of information. Hey, there's a ship, here's what's on it, here's the cargo, here's the number of people, etc. That right there, and if any ship can hold probes, I would hope any ship would be able to hold the data that the probe returns. And hey, if I'm just skimming through a system, let's pop out a probe. Holy shit, there was a huge, there's a huge Vandal fleet heading through. I'm not going to engage them, but I'm gonna fucking send this data out to everyone. Kind of shit.
Yeah, I kind of the thinking that I have, I don't disagree with what you're saying. The thinking I'm having is maybe it's not so much of a like you're looking for specific things, but it's more like you're collecting, you're just kind of collecting what's out there, and then maybe when you get to your next station, when you turn in that data, that's when it's like, oh hey, yeah, no, you were able to pick up the wake trail, borrowing a term from Elite Dangerous, but picked up a wake trail of a known wanted criminal. If you turn this into the police, they'll give you a small cut of the reward, or you get. I'm just picking a random number. You get 25 credits for turning in evidence. Boom, done, kind of a thing. Or and maybe you have that on multiple levels. So like maybe you get there and they go, oh yeah, no, you have a wake trail for a ship that an insurance company has a question about, and they will pay you X amount of dollars for that data. Like just have it enough that it makes you think about at least doing the extra, going through the effort while you're doing that. So hey, if you don't do it, maybe you're not missing out on much, but if you do it, it takes up your time, keeps you busy, and you make a few extra credits.
On that note, while you were saying that, I actually just thought of something. And this, again, we don't really know how exploration, data running, gameplay will go, but as part of exploration, because I wouldn't really see it in data running necessarily, but as part of exploration in terms of gathering this data. Okay, I've gathered data, so I sent the probe out, it pulled some data. Okay, we've seen the data, but we don't. And again, this is my idea of how it might work. We've got the data back, but we don't really know what the data says. Like unless you're right in front of the thing and your short-range ship sensors can go and pull up the data of a ship's IFF or whatever. This data from the probe, you've got it, but you would have to analyze it to be able to go, hey, go and run this through databases of ship wakes, databases of minerals, whatever. And that might be part of exploration to go and figure out, what is this data? We have the data, but we don't know what it means. And you shift through it and go, oh, hey, yeah, there's a wake signature of a known criminal here. Hey, there's an IFF of a really old wreck here that the UEE was trying to find. They had no idea where it went. Mineral deposits, whatever the case might be. And additionally, too, for a regular ship, so let's just say a 300i. I'm just cruising about. I sent out a probe. I got some data. Cool. Get to my destination. Pull out my little data thing here, and because I can only hold a very small amount of data, not like a data runner who can hold a shit ton. Okay, I've got my data cube here. I pop it into a terminal at a station, and at that terminal I can either sell data wholesale and just get a certain amount, or I can go and shift through it myself, try to see if there's anything actually valuable here and sell that valuable data to whoever, wherever, whatever. Whereas dedicated exploration ships would have a computer or something terminal on the ship that would let you go and shift through that data yourself, similar to how like a refining ship, you can take ore, run it back to the station, and refine it at the station. But if I've got a built-in refiner, I can refine it right there. Kind of the same thing for data is how I'm imagining it, kind of, sort of. Does that make any sense?
I personally, one thing I would like to see them do, I have no idea if this is what they are going to do or not. I'd like to see a separation of a separation of data. And what I mean by that is kind of along the lines of what you're talking about of there's exploration, and then there's like actual data. How do I put this? So what I want is, if you have an exploration ship and you have, you know, sensors that are geared towards that exploration side of the gameplay, I think what those sensors should be able to do is a lot of what you're talking about, which is like I can wide beam it, I can tight beam it, you know, wide area, small area gathering, but I think that the data that it goes for is more along the lines of the exploration, in the sense of like, here's here's different rock types, here's different planetoid types, here's different atmospheres, here's that kind of like natural resource side of things. Whereas if you actually have a dedicated like sensor scanning ship, so like the Terrapin, the what is it, the Hornet Ghost? I think it's the Ghost. What's the Hornet that's supposed to be like the AWACS ship?
Oh,
No,
the
not
tracker.
Stealthy, but the Tracker. Okay, so those kind of ships where they're more about like signals, that's where I would like to see the data that they collect is like they won't get they'll get returned that there is a planet there or there's a asteroid belt there, but they won't get like what are the asteroids made out of, or what's the atmosphere of the planet or things like that. But what they will do is they'll pick up that asteroid has some kind of an emitter that is emitting a frequency on this band, and if I do my calculations kind of like what you're talking about, like take my data and crunch it, I realize that that band is specifically used by this type of a radar or signal mast or something, and it gives me more of that very exactitude data on that type of emission source. That's what I would like to see. So there's a reason for those different types of ships, I guess, is what I'm getting at. So if you have an Explorer,
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Or to put it in modern day terms, you have military planes, and every military plane has radar systems that are designed to pick up, hey, that's an airplane, and it's giving off signals that tells me it's locking on with a missile. And that's pretty much every single military aircraft that's out there. But then you also have very specialized aircraft that are called wild weasels, and they're meant to actually go fly into a threat zone, and they go, okay, there's a radar here, 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 and each one of these is a different type, and they're associated with a different anti-aircraft system, and you can like target very specific things about those emissions because the plane is set up to look for those very specific things. I guess that's kind of what I'm hoping that they go with in that the data exploration sensor realm.
Yeah, I was kind of approaching the idea of it. Like I definitely agree. Like there needs to be a reason. Like if there's a ship out there that has a specific reason for existing, it shouldn't be like just slightly better than this other generic ship. It shouldn't be outclassed by a jack of all trades, essentially. I was just getting at it from the point of view that you might be able to pick up data, you just don't know what it is, and your sensors would be like you could pick up, I'm getting weird readings. Okay, because I'm in an Aurora and my sensor suite is fucking garbage. Whereas if I'm in a Carrack, I would go, hey, that's a fucking jump gate, or not jump gate, but shit, I can't remember the term.
Jump point.
Jump point, yes. That's a fucking jump point here. Holy fucking shit. The Aurora just knew there's something wonky here. I've got some data on it that my sensors saved, and I got no clue.
Yeah.
Because their sensors, like, they can get the data, but they can't translate it. And then maybe that Aurora could take that data to a specialized science suite, and maybe this would play into the science stuff, which we haven't heard shit on for years.
Yeah, the number collider.
And analyze it. Yeah. And then it's like, whereas another ship with specialized sensors getting that same data would be able to at least make more sense of it, depending on what sensors they have and what upgrades they've got, etc.
Yeah, my fallback scenario that I always use in my head is kind of like, you're flying around Yellow Belt and your generic sensor would say, yeah, there's a bunch of asteroids here. Your slightly better one would go, there's a bunch of asteroids here, but this one has a beacon that's emitting some kind of something. And then your specialized ship would be, there's a bunch of asteroids here. That specific rock is emitting this specific frequency, which tells me that it's, that's a listening post of this type. And it'll give me, that listening post has a, on the frequency that's using and the power output, it has a range of, XYZ. So if I get within that zone, I know that I'm in its pickup zone kind of thing. Like, that's how I like to think of like the specialization capabilities.
No, I like that. My thought, and I apologize if I'm ramming on this too much. My thought is just like, I definitely like that idea, but I would want to add in there that, if I'm in a 300i, my central suite is just general stuff here. I'm getting that there's something and I have no idea what. I can save that data, go to someone that's specialized, and then get the same result as if I had brought whatever ship, to at least in the ballpark range of, oh, I know now, okay, that was blah, 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 blah. That's my idea add-on.
Yeah, no, my example is just like the initial contact phase. I absolutely agree that any data that you do collect from that point, if you take it and you spend the time and the effort to go number crunch it, absolutely you should be able to, get a spit out and it goes, oh yeah, no, you were near this type of a, outpost that was, and it gives you almost like all that specialized data as if you're in the specialized aircraft. It gives you that data, just you're no longer there because you had to take that data to go, to the location to get crunched. Absolutely.
And then you're like, oh shit, that was a pirate outpost. You start trying to leave and you didn't even realize what it is. You're just like, oh, I got some weird data, okay. And then, oh shit, they're sending pirate fighters out after you to stop you from telling the advocacy or anyone else. And you're like, shit.
Yep, gotta go.
Whereas, the Carrack flies by and goes, oh shit, we're getting out of here, boys. I know what's going on already.
Hard to starboard. Engine's full. Warp 10.
Only 10? Oh.
Well, I mean, we're only 2,000 years in the future, right? No, but I think we've definitely killed this subject. But I would definitely. I think sensors is the next big thing that is gonna have huge ramifications on the game.
Just imagine a like a component commercial in the Banu style.
Cheap.
Terrible.
Cheap bazaars.
How bizarre. Okay, when is archaeology going to be a?
Well, we'll get perfect segue because we can talk about sand caves while we're at it.
Oh no.
So
on to that. Sorry,
as we
jumping in real fast. You guys are aware that Astropub started a new organization that specifically goes out and looks for the historic memorabilia items.
Really?
Yeah, it's
called
the
stupid little rock with the gold plates.
Huh?
This did the artifact, the little rock with gold plates. Like a little curved rock with gold plates on it.
That's the artifact. From when they showed off the 400i, what was it, last year?
Yeah, it's in game right now.
Yeah. So he's created an organization that specifically is going to be about going and finding anything that is of historical value.
He just wants the artifacts for himself.
Yep.
Okay, that's cool. I thought you meant just to find that one artifact right now. I thought that, really, a whole organization just for that? That's a little silly. I think I had one in my inventory without even having to go look for one.
Damn it, Mando.
Anyways, sorry, I didn't mean to break you off.
No. So pretty much we got the monthly, the July 2022 monthly studio report for Star Citizen. So, pretty much to summarize it, the AI content team dedicated time to bug fixing existing features, hopefully get implemented soon. Continued implementing dynamic conversations feature, and AI engineers got colleagues at work zones to start conversations. Talking about the AI engineers in the game, not the AI engineers at CIG. Just for context there. AI feature and vehicle team, they have a new design for AI perception, where a meter rises depending on small stimuli such as footsteps, gunfire, visualizing the target, etc. So think like your Assassin's Creed, like where there's this little meter above their head and how aware they are of your presence. But you don't see that. And it scales depending on the severity. Work started on the investigation behavior, allowing NPCs to determine potential enemy hiding spots and keep track of what they've seen. They've also blocked out vaulting and mantling animations to give NPCs more locomotion options when in the environment. The AI now when they say blocked out, like they with literal blocks, training the AI to move over blocks for the vaulting animation. AI now fully integrated with the ability to swap between ship modes. Like I imagine that's something like, you know, mining mode to regular mode, SEM, or maybe missile mode, but they've already been able to fire missiles. The AI tech team focus on adding functionality to allow AI to mantle, jump, and vault, as the AI feature and vehicle team blocked out for them. Progress made on locomotion refactor, improving how AI process movement, allowing like actors, creatures, or driving a vehicle or pushing a trolley. And then they fixed several bugs relating to low reaction time and deeping / teleports. I have yet to see this fix.
Hit the lie.
The ship art team had Argo SRV in gray box. That was the update. SRV is in gray box. We have unannounced ship moving to final art. Unannounced vehicle, not Centurion, has been finalized. Because remember, this is the July studio report. Unannounced variant is in white box, but of what, we don't know. The Drake Corsair is in stages of gray box and final art, and then Hammerhead is receiving a resource management pass. So probably going to be like lighting passes.
So I'm anticipating that at IAE this year we're going to have at least one or two new vehicles popping up.
Probably. There's 3 unannounced vehicles just listed above, so.
Yep, I'm betting one is going to pop up before that, and probably 2 during.
We're
engine team.
pretty much 99% guaranteed that we'll be seeing the Vulture at some point this year.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
they've
we've
already showed
seen
it off.
in game.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Vulture, yeah. I mean, the Vulture's scheduled for 3/18, I think. Let me double check that real quick.
Right. No, what I'm getting at is that we know about the Vulture, but there's those 3 unannounced. So, I mean, potentially we're looking at 4 ships this year.
Yeah, we got the unannounced and we got the SRV, which we're probably not going to see this year. But the Corsair.
I think we will.
The SRV, it's only in gray box now. The Corsair we might, because they've been showing stuff off for the Corsair for a while.
True.
Yeah.
That's the Drake competition to not the Cutlass, the Constellation.
Yeah.
The asymmetrical one and all that.
And it's got a wide fan base, so it would be a popular release, you know, to bring people back in.
The engine team did a Ray box overlap checks, a lot of engine improvements. Not to get too technobabble with it, but one of the important things that I thought was that the shader system got improved, render loading thread replaced by video rendering for the UI, and Atmos and Cloud Tech port work along with analyzed new 100-player server. Features the Arena, specifically for Arena Commander, got feature improvements, potentially using PU locations as environments for Arena Commander. Scan, ping, and radar changes, and bug fixes. Which is funny, because I'm actually in Arena Commander right now, and I'm having a weird visual glitch where it looks like my character's on SSD because the colors of everything.
You're
At least in first
LSD.
person.
I'm afraid your GPU is dying, man.
Yeah. Except it's fine when I go into third person.
That's what it wants you to think.
The feature, character, and weapons theme extrapolation issues fixed, laid groundwork for more FPS devices, and code-driven IK combined with hand. Knows what that means. Good. Gameplay features, we got life support and engineering work, all A interactable resource relay points, the UI work for temperature control, and hull scraping ammo and repair station for the salvage gameplay coming up in supposedly. No, I think they're pretty. I think they kind of want to lock that down. The graphics and visual effects, programming and planet tech, we got the Gen 12 gas cloud port, support for silhouettes, air shader improvement, world biome builder. Lighting team, they did a tech debt backlog work, new sand cave archetype, which they want to actually implement in 3.18. Pass on the 600i and MSR crash sites. So we actually have 600i and Mercury Star Runner crash sites, as well as a full pass on Orison Racing Circuit. Your alley data. Narrative team got a new reclaimer and delivery missions, pyro shops, economy design meeting, mocap work, in-game branding, published several newsletters, tales, and entries, which is all the lore stuff that happens every Online services team Montreal improved entity graph service performance, in some cases double-digit percentages, bug fixes, and character reset testing for login flow. They also got began phase 2 of refactor, so ledger and wallet for in-game currency handling. Completed first refactor of new inventory system with support for persistent, because persistent entity streaming is coming in 3. Again, supposedly. Live tools, they added a new way to log into Hex's 3.0's network operation center and manage roles and permissions there. Also conducting internal survey for the network operation center and use feedback, adjustment, and improvement. Not just their live tool stuff. And then UI/VFX, they continued star map UI overhaul. Got an update there. It's still in progress. Adjusted loadout system for persistent streaming, collab with art and lighting on modular sand cave locations, reduced repetition, pre-production on quantum travel visual overhaul. And that's pretty much the entire studio report. So I have to say the sand cave stuff isn't. They showed off the sand caves in Inside Star Citizen a few months ago. Trying to see if I can have it on screen here. A lot. That's the sand. That's just a one of the work in progress models for the sand caves. Honestly, they look great. They remind me of something out of India. That's good. Hopefully we can get a repelling so that we can rappel down into the sand caves and find a bunch of snakes. Or arcs, or whatever you want. No, don't question data. Let's get data to talk about racing. I mean, they did that whole thing with ISC this week, right? Or last week,
Yeah,
sorry.
that PTV track looks sick. I can't wait. It's unfortunate that we're gonna have to wait until 318 to get it because I want
But
it now. Give me.
It is coming in 318.
I guess the earliest we would see it is 318. I mean, it looks pretty much fleshed out and finished, but I mean, I seriously doubt it'll be brought. I don't think we're gonna get any iterative patches in between now and 318. So the earliest we'll see it would be 318.
Now the real question is, do we stroke Data's ego, or do we just let it go unnoticed? Yeah.
Huh?
For those who don't know, Data is part of the XGR racing community who worked with CIG to make the Snake Pit track currently in game. According to Black Maze, you're one of the fastest racers.
I mean, I placed myself in probably the top 6. I wouldn't say I am the fastest, but yeah, I'm up there. But that's mostly because I have a lot of experience. I think once we get more people racing, then the gap, maybe not the gap, but the group of people that are at the top will increase. And also, I didn't have anything to do with the creation of the Snake Pit. That was before my time in XGR, but XGR did come up with the original route before Nino helped us out with some pipes and platforms that look amazing.
Also, what's this Cyclone Cup?
Say what?
You're talking about a Cyclone Cup in the chat?
Yeah, I am going to be hosting a Cyclone racing. I'm calling it a championship. I'm not really sure if you could consider it championship, but it's going to be 8 races. And it's going to coincide with the last 8 races of the Stanton Cup, which is going on right now. And it's not going to be on air the same way that the XGR Cup races are. We're going to do it the weekend before and record it, and then have it played during the intermission in between the heat and main races of the XGR shipped race.
That's a good idea.
But it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. I love the way the stock Cyclone handles. It is by far the best ground racing vehicle in Star Citizen at the moment, in my opinion. And I can't wait to get like 6 to 8 people running my tracks. It's going to be great.
I can't wait for those rework for the Cyclones to actually handle like vehicles and not arcadey.
The Stock Cyclone is not bad. The only thing that sucks about it is like the way physics is handled when you're in the air. It's not 100% accurate, but the physics for the Stock Cyclone are not terrible. It just we need auto brake to go away. Give us the option to turn that off, and the ability to actually have a what do you call it? An analog brake, so it's not just on off.
Yep.
That's why the stock Cyclone is so hard to control, because anytime you let off the accelerator, the brake automatically comes on and it makes you spin out. That's why it's so difficult. You either throttle forward while you're turning to stabilize, or you have to actually hit reverse throttle, which it's really weird. It's really buggy. I hope they get that fixed.
I can't wait for the Ranger.
Oh God, don't. I hope it's good, but I think it's gonna suck.
We'll see.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like the Nox.
Could be.
Though
well,
I did say that one of the reasons they haven't brought the Ranger out yet is because they're trying to get the lean mechanics in, so like you're leaning into the turns and stuff like that. And if they can get that working, and it's you lean and then turn instead of you input turn and then lean, then maybe they can export that to the Nox, because the Nox desperately needs better control. I can't stand the way it works right now.
Dragonfly too.
Yeah, all the grabs I have bikes, like the way they handle is you're inputting a control and then the animation plays on top of it, so it's always laggy and behind what you're doing, and it doesn't translate well. I really want it to be the other way, where I'm leaning the bike and then the bike turns based on how much I lean it, but I don't know.
The problem, though, would be, and I don't know how they would fix this, but with how you're describing it, and I do agree that is realistic, but part of the problem is it would require the game to somehow be ahead of the character movement and start playing the leaning before you start turning, or alternatively, and this would be the more realistic option in terms of what they could do, to where I hold left to go and turn left. My character starts leaning, and then a half second later, the vehicle starts turning left. So there would always be a delay in turning to play that startup animation.
Well, the problem is that it's animation. That is the whole problem. The animation needs to go away, in my opinion. The way a ship functions right now is you roll your ship to the, say you're in atmosphere, you roll 30 degrees to the right, and you either nose up or strafe up, and you start moving that direction because you have gravity pulling you down, and your upward momentum plus the angle makes you turn. That's one way to turn. What we have with the bikes is you just input a turn direction, the bike turns, and the animation that they have baked on top plays to make you lean. What I want is the ability to control the lean of the vehicle, and that lean controls the turn.
Yeah, so the harder analog input, so that the longer or harder you're pressing that turn, then affects how much of the animation you begin to lean.
Right, like I guess that we're getting. When I say animation, what I mean is they've got this baked animation into the vehicle right now,
as opposed to a reactive one.
Instead of like me, I guess what I don't consider me controlling the role of a vehicle to be an animation that's playing. You're interacting with the thrusters of the vehicle to change its rotation, and that change controls where the vehicle goes. Whereas right now, what you do is you just put an input control, it changes the direction of the vehicle, and they have an animation that plays on top of it to simulate what would happen in real life. That's what I want to go away. I hate that system. I want to have full control of the vehicle, and the inputs that I give the thrusters change how the vehicle behaves instead of just I'm going to turn I'm inputting left, and the vehicle turns left, and all this extra stuff happens on top of it because they want to make it look like it's functioning, like I'm in control, but I'm actually not.
Then take control.
I hope.
So I have a completely kind of off topic, but still in the racing realm question. How come I don't see the Razors being like the top racing ships? Aren't they supposed to be like the Formula One race ships?
Huh.
It depends on what race are you talking about and looking at? Because there's the Razors and well, anyway, answer my question first, and then I'll tell you what I think.
Okay.
Like, what are you looking at when you're talking about racing? What ships or tracks or leaderboard, or what are you looking at?
Just a general racetrack. I've only seen clips, so I can't be definitive per se. But I guess what I'm in my head, what I'm thinking is, you know, you have a racetrack that is essentially, let's take the snake pit. You have the snake pit. I would think that the Razor would, if it's designed specifically for racing, wouldn't it be like a predominant ship that would handle that racetrack very well? But yet, I don't seem to see a lot of the Razors whenever I see racing footage, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Okay, so last patch, not 3.7, or yeah, it was 3.17. So, or was it 3.16? It might have been 3.16. A lot of the ships had their top speed adjusted, and some of the more prolific racing ships were caught by that, and some, like the 85X, didn't get touched at all. So it is now the fastest racing ship, even though it's actually not supposed to be a racer. Some of the other ships that you would expect to to handle well, like the M50. The M50 is just terrible. I think its big hangup is that it really needs control surfaces, which we don't have. So they're trying to kind of fake the thrusters working like control surfaces, but it just doesn't handle well. It's absolute garbage in atmosphere.
Okay.
The Razor is actually pretty good. Like it'll be my vehicle of choice when we do the snake pit race in the XGR championship.
Okay.
It's funny that the P52 is probably faster right now because it just has some really godlike control in atmo. It doesn't have a lot of top speed, but its handling is just it's too good actually. It's broken. It needs to be adjusted. But the
Gotcha.
Razor is probably the best in atmo short courses, with the 350R being better because it has a much better boost speed.
Yeah. No, I think you answered it, which is what I wasn't thinking about. Duh, I should have. Was exactly what you said, which is it's down to them tweaking the different ship mechanics, input output type stuff to as to why certain ships are and are not faster. So
yeah, in some ways it's kind of frustrating, but in other ways it's refreshing because every patch that we get where they adjust performance variables, the thing that was the best last patch changes, and
yep.
It's frustrating in one sense because you got a ship, you practice a lot with it, you really like it, you want it to be good, and it sucks when things that you like. Right. It's better because things get narrowed down and get adjusted that are better. I think overall, in my opinion, ships handle too well at the moment, and I expect all of that to get toned down a little bit because if you think about the speeds that a ship can go in right now, just in general, you're doing 300 to 400 meters a second in atmosphere. That's really, really, really fast, and for racing, I would actually like the speeds to get dropped down even more because one thing that we found with XGR is that really fast racing, it sounds really great, but it means that you can't compete with other people close up because the speed differentials are just too high. It'd be like trying to race an F1 car right now with F1 being able to go twice as fast as it can. You can't race close in proximity with other people because the deltas and speeds are just too high. So I would like the top speed, or maybe like the way boost is handled, to get reduced, or at least to give us the ability to adjust it in game for racing, because when you lower the speeds a little bit, then you increase the ability to race close in with other people, and that's what I really enjoy. Having someone right next to you when you're going around a turn, it just feels so great.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying about the fact that it sucks every time the metrics change, but from an overall perspective of the racing community and getting people interested, I think it is good that you have whoever was the top dog in X ship. Each new patch, there's a chance that that's going to change, and that draws people in because that creates interest of what's the new ship and who's the best in that specific ship.
Yeah, I was thinking about this when y'all were talking about the direction that the game seems to be going, like FPS gameplay, and everybody's into combat and stuff. And I didn't say anything because I didn't want to derail or. Anyway, I was thinking about this specifically, that racing doesn't get a lot of well, it hasn't until recently got a lot of attention, but man, it's so much fun. I hosted a formation flight this last weekend, and it's another one of those experiences that you really can't get in any other game. Like maybe DCS World, but like with the fidelity of Star Citizen and the way that they've really fixed the sync with ships, you can fly 30 meters off of somebody's wing in decoupled mode without a limiter, and having the control and just being able to do it It's like relaxing. You've got the beautiful sunset of New Babbage off in the distance. It's gorgeous. It's an experience that I haven't gotten in any other game, and I think those types of gameplay, if they got more attention, would really bring people into the game, and it's something that you can experience. It's like Space Engineers in the sense that there is no structured, scripted campaign where that you follow. It's something that you do because it's fun, and you can get other people to join, and that's one thing that I love about Star Citizen just in general. The game is what you make it. It can be frustrating with bugs when you're trying to do events that have an objective and a goal, but you also have the ability just to go out and have fun with friends where there is no goal. And in those environments, the bugs aren't that bad.
Well, plus to bring back up one of the things that we were talking about earlier, it's one of the things that you can do where you can jump right into the game and get right into your racing because you don't need to worry about all that inventory management type stuff. So it's a what's the term I'm looking for? It's the quick fix. I only got an hour.
It's very
jump in and race.
Exactly. Yeah. And on that note, I don't know if you saw on one of their CHI's releases that they've got a team that's going to rework all of the Arena Commander tracks and stuff and update them, and that's going to be interesting. I really hope that they add atmosphere to some of these tracks because that's something that they really miss. You have this planetary body and you're flying around, but right now all the physics are 100% zero G. So I'm hoping to see some Atmos stuff in the future.
Yeah, because that'll make those tracks a lot more interesting.
Through a hurricane, don't you?
You know what would be really cool is if they set up those Arena Commander venues so that you could have player spectators come in and watch races, because then you could actually have those structured events that are like what XGR is already kind of doing, but having to do in the PU. You could do it in Arena Commander, and it gives you a much more controlled environment. Where you can have like players sitting on an apartment roof watching the racers go by.
Yeah, you'd probably accidentally get decapitated by one of the racers when the eventual inevitable happens.
Yeah, but the cool thing about Arena Commander is that it's just a simulation. It's designed, or the story is it is a simulation in the PU, so it's none of it's real. So yeah, I would really be interested in kind of exploring that idea.
I mean, that back in the day when I first got into Star Citizen, and Arena Commander was kind of the only place that you could go and do anything other than Port Olisar and the empty system. That was where you went, and that's where you did everything. And I thought it was. I always thought it was kind of a missed opportunity on CIG's part that they didn't develop more maps that people could like maybe each year they put out a different racing map would be cool, and just have a bunch to select from, but they never really developed that.
Yeah, that's it's probably the scheduling focus thing. It's big company, things shuffle and change. I'm glad it's getting some attention now, though.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we need to do is start a a grassroots movement to get CIG to look into those aspects of since they're already doing their Arena Commander stuff, get attention towards that racing side of it and going, hey, we need to allow players to come in as spectators so we can have events.
Yeah, I have to say I'm really glad that racing is getting a lot of attention recently, because it's a lot of fun. It's a good way to grow your skills, and it's just fun. Like, I understand combat is fun. I enjoy combat, but doing other things in the verse, like combat should be like what, maybe a quarter of what you do in the universe. There should be 3 times that of other types of content that you can do, because combat is fun and it's great in its place, but it gets old after a while. You want Star Citizen is supposed to be like a living, breathing environment. So I'm really looking forward to the other types of gameplay that aren't just focused on blowing things up.
How dare you? I'm kidding.
He's daring to dare, Cam.
Well, I mean, since we're on the topic of Arena Commander, I want them to bring back the original idea of it, which was you had your personal hangar, and in the hangar you had the Arena Commander sim pit, sitting in a corner that you would go sit in, and that's how you would launch into Arena Commander.
Yeah. This week.
I actually am not a fan of it being a menu selection from outside the game, or, from the main menu. Like, to me, I think it would bring it back into the verse if you were to actually put it in the hangars again. But that's just me.
Well, the hangars don't exist
agree,
anymore.
But I think it's a planning, well, not a planning issue, but it's a technical issue on one hand, and then a time issue on the other. I think eventually we will see it integrated in some form into the PU, but for now it makes a lot of sense just to have it off the main menu, because it'd be complicated to try to implement it into the PU in a way that other people can access it the way it works right now. It'd be pretty difficult, I think.
Yeah, I think what they'll probably, what I want, I understand like the complexity of that, and I don't think it'll happen. But what I could see them doing is creating areas in the PU that kind of like going to New Babbage, and you go into like one section, and there's like maybe a room with like 50 of those machines that you sit inside. And so it'd be kind of one of those things where you go to like a major spaceport and you go sign into a booth, and then that's how you get into it.
I mean, those pods are visible in game right now at New Babbage. They're they're sold there. I mean, you can't buy it at the moment in game, but like at the store, it's pretty. The whole thing is they make it. So
yeah,
I agree. I definitely like to see them return.
Way to get people, like, to tie it all kind of together. Like, you're doing an event, so here's a way that you can do an event in a controlled environment, but at the same time, you're bringing real world players into the game, into the PU, and then they're actually traveling to a destination in the PU and then logging into their Arena Commander to watch the race. Like that makes it gameplay. Like, hey, let's go to the races, kind of a thing. Anywho.
You can make the same argument for in the PU, but no, I just, more options are great, so I'd say
yeah, my only problem with doing it like straight in the PU is like, okay, so I gotta go fly to this moon, and there's only so many people allowed in the shard, and it's already filled with most of the racers and their best friends. So how do I get in to actually watch that? Whereas I think Arena Commander, you might be able to tweak that process so that rando players can actually show up and just be spectators, if that makes sense.
And not just the +1, or in this case +3 of the racer.
Yeah, because right now, shard fills up, and then with all the racers, and there's only like 10 slots left, and one of those is for the announcer and his partner announcer, and then
and you have like 5 different guys recording.
Is taking up another spot, and so there's only 2 slots left.
And you have like the 5 guys recording the event.
Yeah. So that's my only reason for saying send it into the Arena Commander, because then maybe you could tweak the numbers with the way Arena Commander works, that to allow a larger fan base into the process.
I'm going to segue this into a question that I don't remember. Maybe I just wasn't here when you talked about it. What do you think about the new player caps in Star Citizen?
I'm all for it. I think it's a good thing. And my understanding, and I could be wrong on this, but my understanding is that when we get these shards, they're still going to be limited by what the max, so you have the server, and then within that server you have multiple shards, but each one of those shards can only contain the max capacity of the server itself. So let's just, for rando numbers, let's say that server can only handle 50 people. That means that each one of the shards inside that server can only have 50 people. So to me, if you can bump those numbers up for the server by itself, that increases the number of people that can be in each one of those shards, which then increases, at the player level, increases however many shards you have by X. So that's where you start being able to have those really large engagements of, fleets and a fully manned Polaris going up against another fully manned Polaris, because right now, even if your server is capped at 100, that's like 2 Polarises and what, maybe some support fighters, and that's it. So
Yeah.
I'm all for the more numbers that you can get in there. That just increases the capabilities of what can be done in the system. That's my take.
Cam, any input?
No, I mean, we talked. I think it was only Cam and I when we talked about it 2 weeks ago, and we're all like, "Yeah, no, this is great." I mean, it definitely solves a lot of issues, but it opens new doors. But you still need server meshing and a lot of other backend tech for. I don't want to say for it to make a difference. Just it's a step in the right direction. That's really no negative. It's just a step in the right direction. As Callsign put it, like, yeah, you need to push the limits so that you can have as you need the maximum amount of players there, so this way you can have all these fleet battles and stuff due to how the shards work.
Yeah, I was impressed because I haven't noticed any more strain or server degradation than is normal in Star Citizen.
Right, that was the thing that I was worried about, but pleasantly surprised to see, like, hey, out of everything that's happened in 3.17.2, the servers aren't. I mean, you can argue. Oh, I'm sorry. You can argue that the servers are.
Oh, go.
No, they're calling about some toner. You can argue that the servers aren't any better, but they're not any worse either. So that's great, especially when you've increased the player count by twice the amount, if not a little bit more, because some servers are like 111 or something like that.
Yeah, I have not heard anyone say anything negative about it. Basically, they've all said exactly the same thing that kind of what you guys were saying, which is there's been no worsening of the system. It hasn't gotten better, but it hasn't gotten worse, and that's a good thing in the sense that, like, CIG has gone, hey, it didn't get worse, so we're just going to keep bumping the numbers up until we see what the max is that we can reach. And yeah, I think I heard they got as high as 120 at one time.
Yeah,
I think that would be
correct.
110
in live, I think.
No, it's only 110 in live. Although I've seen like 111 once, but it's 120 was during the PTU, I think, and then like no, that's too high. We went too far. And now it's 110.
But still, 110 is pretty impressive.
It is. Like, again, that's you just doubled a little bit more than doubled your player count per server. Because prior to that, it was 50. That's definitely a step in the right direction. Hopefully, major improvement. If they can do something like that, just because, hey, we realize we can.
Well, here's the other big thing that a lot of people don't think about. the higher the number that you can have in the server is good for the, I'm going to use air quotes around this, the regular players in the PU, because what it means, when you have the lower numbers, that means that a pirate organization, I'm going to use the generic term of pirate, but an organization that's geared towards, interrupting normal players' fun, and that's a very general, broad term I'm using there, but essentially, when the numbers were lower, that means that that pirate organization could basically flood the server and block it off from anybody getting any help. Whereas the higher the number count is, that means that bigger pirate org, even when they show up, you can still call for help, and your friends will actually be able to join the server and help you out.
Yeah.
You still might not succeed, but at least that option is there.
No, it gives them a fighting chance, even if it's something very minuscule. There's more room in the server, unless they flood the server with like 90 people or something. And there are a lot of orgs that have thousands of members, so I doubt they have that many online at a time.
I'm saying it's harder for them to do that. Whereas like right now, with a 50-player cap, it was really easy to basically block off a server. I think I can't think of the name right now, but the very popular pirate organization that's out there that stalks people right now, they're known to go after a YouTuber named Salty Mike quite often. But that's actually part of their strategy, is once they find a target, they will bring in as many of their own players as they can to the server to help block that server out so that nobody can help in the response.
Is it ADI? Evil Org?
No, it's like Dog or something like that. Mongrel Squad, that's what it is. Sorry.
What was it?
Mongrel Squad.
Mongrel Squad.
Yeah, they're pretty popular. They even put out their own YouTubes of them performing.
I'm pretty sure every org does at this point. Hell, we do.
Yeah. But anyways, that's another bonus of increasing the numbers, is that the server can't be blocked out, or it's a lot harder to do that.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing.
It is. And also, you know what else is a good thing? Like, back to the whole racing stuff, obviously you got the Snake Pit track. Apparently also, I haven't actually been there since I was there once with data before 3.17.2, so before there was the DIG version of it where it's now official. But they made it. They wanted it to be believable for lore and fun. And obviously, it's made with existing assets, so it's already in the game. It was created during spare time between tasks by the devs. So they're hoping to do more. As he said, they want to redo the Arena Commander maps. And they talked about doing more tracks, like they're doing the Star Kart racing. Totally not inspired by a certain Italian plumber. But it's supposed to be an in-game go-kart track, which is going to be it's aiming for 3.18. So it may not be in there, but it's aiming for 3.18. It's currently on the roadmap for 3.18. The idea is to filling areas of the game normally used for events. It's situated in the Vision Center Convention Hall, which is where they have the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo or the Invictus Launch Week stuff at Orison, and it's going to be using the PTV Grey Cat buggies, because they've been using those models a lot at Orison lately for the Siege of Orison. It's a lot of overturned ones. Data and I were riding around in.
So one of the things about that is that I haven't heard how they're going to do it, but so the question, I guess, that's being asked is it going to be a thing where like it's permanently at that location, and then it gets shut down during conventions, and then after the conventions it pops up? So like it's a pretty much a semi-permanent thing for that location, or are they going to rotate it around? So maybe like for a patch cycle, or a month, it's at one convention center, and then it shuts down there and it moves to a different location, a different convention hall for a period of time. I don't know, but that's just something I've heard people talking about, asking that question.
I have no idea, but that is a good question.
It's an interesting idea. It really depends on whether or not the other convention halls, whether they can just drop that asset into the hall that's already there, or if it's custom built with a specific one in mind. Yeah.
I would like to see them build them at each convention center and have them running at all times. So like each track is different. So that gives you a reason to go to the different ones because you want to try different things, and then just have them shut down during, if there's a convention at that location, then they shut down during that time. And then, once it's over, they pop back up. But it gives you that variety and, hey, let's go over to Horizon and try that racetrack out today. And then,
also allows more players to do it at once.
Yeah, that too.
It'd give you another reason to visit one of the major landing zones too.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually give you something to do in a major landing zone.
It'd be one of the first major gameplay loops to do at a landing zone.
I can see it already. 75 player lines.
Yep. Well, that's why I said, it would give more players a chance to do it at once, because if it's only at Orison, you're kind of screwed. You're hopping servers pretty much for 4 hours straight.
Hey, we just fixed all the load issues for New Babbage. It runs super smooth, but now we got player lines at the convention center, so so
it's back to normal.
Your frames still tank.
Take a number, take a seat.
Yeah. Number 1 million. We got the Arena Commander Classic Race Mode overhaul is actually on the roadmap for 3.18. Screw it. Let's just go over the 3. So, locations, we got the Daymar crash site, derelict settlement on Daymar using parts of the Star Runner and 600i, as well as some HABs adapted to be the biome. Adapted to the biome to create a point of interest with some type of activity, either puzzle, traversal, hostile AI, mission, etc., as well as rewards for completion. We got new rivers in Stanton. They talked about that, I believe, in not last week's ISE, but 2 weeks ago with the Centurion showcase of it, the new ground vehicle. I'm essentially just talking about how they've improved the abilities to create rivers and how they're going to have more rivers on Microtech. They mentioned Hurston rivers as well, but they didn't show anything else. I don't think we're going to Hurston rivers in 3.18, but they talked about it. Worth mentioning because Hurston's the only planet that actually has liquid oceans. The Danton system, so. And also we got the Sand Cave archetype, so establishing the visual language, creation pipeline, and quality standard for a new Sand Cave archetype. Release cave networks using this archetype will be placed throughout the Stanton system, so the different types of caves that aren't just, creepy rock caves. Gameplay-wise, obviously we got the cargo system refactored. That was one of the big things for 3.18, which is why there's going to be a wipe for 3.18. We got the Arena Commander Classic Mode overhaul. We talked about Sandbox Prison activity. So an expansion of prison gameplay with new suite of missions and sandbox activities to give inmates more opportunities to earn merit or to aid in their escape from prison. I don't know if this was from CIG or just from the Star Citizen leaks or just some guys talking, but someone mentioned using there's like a boxing ring in the caves, in the work mines of the prison, and maybe having activities maybe that was one of the things they were talking about, or what's mentioned in the prison activities, where there's boxing matches. They talked about Security Post Korea reactivation. So Security Post Korea is finally going to be turned online. Finally. It'll finally become an active zone where Crusader Security is actively patrolling the area.
But, keynote there, in lore, it's noted as specifically a failure in the
Yes.
system.
So Security Post Korea will be taking a more central role in Stanton Security. Crusader Security have moved in a full-time staff and have begun storing confiscated contraband aboard. The station will be off limits to all civilians unless given prior authorization, i.e. missions or reputation. Which means that it is not going to be the easy-peasy version of hacking your crime stat no more. And as for the contraband stuff, I remember, I think it was Super Mac Bro talking about, like, maybe if you get arrested and all your stuff is going to be there, and you have to, like, get your stuff there if you broke out of prison, you know, or something like that. Who knows? That's probably going to play more into the crime systems later on down the line. We also got new missions at Orison, Bounty, Assassinate, Clear All, and other missions to take place on the platforms created for Siege of Orison, which in future will be distributed across the planet of Crusader to create further content. So there are going to be other areas around the planet, not just Orison, but other areas that you can go to for different missions. And I think that's pretty cool. Making use of existing assets and tech and creating new gameplay with it.
One thing
or adding gameplay using it.
Can we go and finally get the mission givers we were supposed to get with Microtech and Crusader? Because weren't we supposed to get two
Not listed.
advocacy agents like 3 or 4
Also
years
the
ago?
We were, yeah.
New Babbage bartender.
And the Crusader Security, two Crusader Security mission givers.
Unfortunately, the bartender was grabbed and shot out back. I'm sorry.
He didn't serve drinks right. We also got the new interdiction scenarios, so adding new variation and difficulty levels of interdiction scenarios that players will come across while quantum traveling. Oh, this is probably going to translate into you're going to be interdicted every 5 seconds. I hope not, but
On the mission event, the mission handlers, one mission type handler that I'd like to see is one that's not actually based anywhere. You get contacted and it's like, hey, meet me at these coordinates, and it's out in space somewhere. And then you maybe you just have a radio communications conversation, or maybe you actually EVA over to their ship and then sit down and discuss things, but just
maybe
the guy is just randomly wandering around and you never know where he is until he calls you and gives you a location to go.
So there is one currently in game that's sort of like that. There's no audio, but it's if you go into the private contracts, there's one listed on the sender is named Vaughn, and he's like this unknown guy who essentially just be like, hey, do this essentially you can build up rep with this character. He is a mission giver, but not in the same way that say Miles Eckhart or the non-game mission givers we're supposed to be getting are. But it would be interesting when. What?
Never mind.
It would be interesting that when we get ship-to-ship docking, maybe there's something along those lines where, hey, meet me at X coordinates, and then you meet up. It's like an 890 jump. You have to dock, or land inside the hangar, depending on the ship you're in. You meet up with him at that dining area. Gives you the mission.
Poisons you slightly.
I'm not specific on the particulars. The main idea is just that the guy doesn't have a set location. It's one of those things where you can't go find him. It's when you've done, X thing, and maybe you don't even know what that X thing is, but you just reach a certain level of something. That's when you get a notification of kind of like, hey, if you're interested in work, I've been keeping an eye on you. Fly out to this location. And each time it's sent, it's a different location that it gives you to go to, kind of a thing.
Oh, I was just listing an example of that with it would be an 890 jump. It's like, oh wow, okay, this is a big deal now, right? But yeah, I like that because it would make it easier, and you don't have to. But then you'll most certainly have the issue where the AI does not show up.
Of course,
because it's Star Citizen. And then you'll just be sitting there and you'll abandon the mission because screw it. I have better things to do with my time.
You got suckered by a bot call.
I fucking knew it.
But yeah, I'd like to see something like that for Mission Giver. It's just kind of a random unknown guy out there. And who knows, maybe you do enough missions and finally he gives you the coordinates to like the secret moon base or something. I don't know.
That's no moon.
Yeah. That's no asteroid.
You're right. Blam.
That's
But
one of
yeah.
the
We
reasons
just
why.
constantly start getting messages. We've been trying to contact you about your vehicle's extended warranty.
Yeah.
No.
But yeah, so we got that. We got the environmental space missions, implementation of new missions and scenarios the player will encounter as they wander around the area. Space missions that appear will be based on the probability volumes that the player is currently in. So, essentially, random encounters, which is good. I want to see more of that.
Of the fifth dimension.
And lastly, for gameplay stuff, salvage hull strippings. That's been on 318's roadmap for a while, but it's still there.
Well,
Believe it when I
have
see
some
it.
bad news.
Yeah, I agreed.
It's
supposedly.
been delayed.
It's been delayed to soon.
Yes.
When will now? When will then be now? Yeah, we got that. Obviously, along with salvage Year Zero, I guess you're getting the Drake Vulture and the Grey Cat multi-tool salvage attachment. That's all the salvage stuff, which is hopefully not going to be delayed again. But I'm not holding hope out that it's going to be in 318. The other things that were just added to 318 seem more likely. We're also getting core tech in 318 with persistent entity streaming.
Look, I'm just saying, what could possibly go wrong?
Which is essentially like, oh, I'm going to leave this gun or coffee mug, whatever, on the surface of this moon, and then come back 3 weeks later, and it'll still be there.
Supposedly.
Assuming someone else hadn't found it and picked it up.
Though.
What?
Because, I mean, it's don't get me wrong, I'm all for the mechanic, and it's going to make this game special. Because I don't know of any other game that does it on an MMO level, like what they seem to be indicating they want to do it at, and I think that's cool. But I think there's still going to have to be some culling, because if you think about it, like if everything is persistent, that means like you do an empty mag change in the middle of combat, and you don't pick up that mag.
Yep.
That thing's going to be left there forever. And, after 4 years of the game running, how many empty mags are going to be scattered across the systems? And while
you go to a bunker and there's no floor, it's just empty mags.
Yeah, they'll have to have some form of entity cleanup for the smaller bits. They just have to.
Yeah. My question is, how small is that going to be? Is it going to be
they
something where
a month?
Huh?
So a month and a day, that coffee cup you put down in the forest disappears.
See, that part I'm not a fan of. I'd like some way of like, maybe you have maybe only specifically with containers, but I'd like the ability to like go stash a box and it's indefinite. Maybe it's tied to my account. So like if I actually close my account out, then it actually says, okay, this box can now be deleted from that forest on that moon because this player no longer exists, kind of a thing.
Or maybe
but as long as I'm actually, actively playing the game, actively meaning, within, I log in maybe once every 3 months or something, pick a number. I'm just using generic terms here, but as long as I'm an active player, air quotes around that box stays where I put it. And maybe it's that there's an option maybe in the menu process as I'm putting that box down at that location. Maybe there's a specialized box that I can click that says this thing needs to be, indefinitely persistent, as long as my account's active or something like that.
I don't think the limitation would be the number of entities that are stored in the database, because that's going to be easy. The limitation will be how many entities your PC can render on screen at one time. So the short answer, I think, right now is probably they don't know. We don't know either.
Yeah.
They're going to have to do some testing and see what breaks the system. But I think it'll be
absolutely.
more. I think it's going to be more like how many boxes of gowns can your computer handle rendering in a station before they have to start cleaning them up.
Yeah. I'm in a forest, and every single tree has a box at the base of it.
Yeah.
Every player went there and put a box there. Yeah. So yeah, no, good point. And I'm not saying I'm not asking like what is the numbers. I'm just I guess what I'm trying to postulate is what is their plan gonna be? And I totally agree with you. They probably don't know, and this is stuff that still has to be worked out.
I'm sure we see roving bands of organizations with 100 players plus constantly going to the same place and just dumping shit out to see how long it takes to break something.
Yeah.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah. Every hospital gown gets dumped this one spot.
Yeah. You're gonna have like people putting hospital gowns in the bomb bays of A2s and then just dropping them on a moon.
Oh, I guarantee you, some organization is gonna like publicly announce, like, "Hey, we're doing our own test. Every single person in the server, whenever you respawn, bring your gown to our waiting Connie at this pad and just drop it there." And that org will spend the time and the effort to box all of them up in cargo, and then fly them to one spot and drop them there, and do that repeatedly, like day after day after day after day, until they see something happen. Somebody's going to do it.
Mount
if you
gown.
start to think about what having just entities being saved out there in the middle of nowhere can cause, think about space junk. Like, there's unintended consequences that maybe we haven't even considered. Like, what's going to happen when somebody leaves a size 5 gun floating out in the middle of space and you run into it at 1,200 meters a second?
EVA takes on a whole new danger.
One other thing, too, is with knickknacks. Knickknacks currently shows where all your stuff is, right? So with that, you could have it to where you can only have, say, 200 items. And if you go over that, item number 1 despawns.
You're talking about like all your let's say you're in your colonial hab building on some moon, and you've got 200 items in there, and you bring in numbers 200 through 225, and you drop them on the floor, then items 1 through 25 disappear. Is that what you're saying? Hello.
Cam.
Did we lose Cam?
I think we lost Cam.
He camped.
Okay.
Awkward silence.
But yeah, so you brought up a good point though about like the stuff in space. Yeah, because that's all like all the bits and bobs when you if you take the time to actually blow up a ship, like all those pieces going to float around out there indefinitely?
Yeah, the answer is no. Space Engineers has showed that there's a maximum number of entities that you can have being simulated at one time.
Yeah.
And I know they have streaming, which the Space Engineers didn't, but it's just logical. You're going to have some kind of entity cleanup. And it should be pretty easy to have an in-lore system for why some things are cleaned up more often than others.
And you can really just chalk it up to by the time you've got there.
Sorry.
So you go.
I was just going to say, we're forgetting about the AI. The AI could have, contracts to actually go clean up, areas.
Yeah, and players could even get contracts to go clean up junk. And
I was literally just going to say, you can chalk it up by the time you get there or would have passed through there, it already had been cleaned up and salvaged or whatever by someone or by AI or so like that would be the justification for, oh, why don't I see this anymore? Well, because someone else, like someone got to it, now gone. Like that's how it is.
If they did that, I would like to see the like the I don't know how to say this properly, but like the area of interest that they try to maintain is, you know, the closer the larger the habitation settlement is, the closer you are to it, the more they try and keep it clean. Whereas if you get further and further away, then maybe you have a chance of your box, you know, you leave a box in the forest, maybe it actually gets left there and doesn't get cleaned up because it's, well, you know, because you went 200 clicks away from that human settlement and there's no contract to go out that far, kind of a thing, if I'm making sense.
Or just it's not their jurisdiction, or they just don't care because it's not the city, it's the wilderness, so it's not affecting them. Yeah,
it sounds all great when you have one person that drops a cup out in the middle of the woods somewhere, but when you have 100 people dropping a cup every single day in the same place, something's got to give.
So maybe okay, so here's an idea.
The Leaning Tower of Porcelain.
Based on the entity count. So if the game does recognize that, hey, you know what, the players are messing around with our system and they're purposely going and dropping a bunch of, you know, coffee cups in this one forest that's 200 kilometers away. Once the entity count gets certain size, they go, you know, the nearest city government goes, all right, somebody, here's a contract to go clean up that zone because it's gotten big enough to be a problem, kind of a thing. That might solve it.
And then they stumble across the Leaning Tower of Porcelain, just all these mugs stacked on top of each other. It's like kilometer high.
Yeah, just one of those extra things that we're gonna have to figure out as we go.
Yeah, well, what got the path I started going down that brought me to this question was thinking about, like, okay, so you got your big cities, not even big cities, but you got settlements, anything, you know, starting from small settlements going all the way up to major landing zones. And those are going to be high traffic areas, blah, blah, blah. But what about when you have, you know, you find that cave and you set up, you know, let's say you have the ability to set up shop there, you know, you create your little habitation module and you start setting things up there. How do you avoid your kind of random location selection from being cleaned up by an automated system that CIG obviously is going to have? And that's where I started thinking about, like, how do you create, you know, how do you make sure that intentional things are left there, but unintentional or not needed things, even if they are placed there by players, eventually get cleaned up somehow?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think that the only answer we can give right now is we're just gonna have to wait and find out.
Yep.
See what happens.
We don't have to wait though for more details on some of those 3.18 additions. So Daymar crash sites, derelict settlement, that's new rivers in Stanton's gonna be additional rivers and lakes on Microtech and Hurston. So it is gonna be on Hurston.
I did like that show they gave on the rivers.
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty cool, seeing the technology that guy developed.
Yeah, and how it would automatically adjust the river, like to see, like, oh, how would it work, and depending on where he'd move his mouse, it would go longer or shorter based on terrain height maps.
Yeah, and then they took it to the next level and were just like, okay, search the whole planet and tell me where the best places are, and boom, it was like.
And then they have to make it.
Minutes.
Then they have to make it go with the art team, and then there you go, river. Or
the really cool
many
thing
rivers.
about that tech is that they can use it for any liquid, including like lava flows or
because they're using the same
other
tech.
types of chemical flows or whatever. Yeah.
Like, so, for instance, they want to create a moon or location similar to, say, the moon of Titan, where it's liquid methane everywhere.
Yep.
What's your face? Doesn't Lyria have liquid oxygen lakes?
I'm not sure if they're liquid. It definitely has like frozen. Is it?
Is it
methane?
frozen or liquid? Because I
I'm not
remember,
sure one of
I
them's
remember
liquid. I don't know.
way back when. I remember seeing footage of someone walking into and then dying. They walked into liquid Star Citizen.
I want to
then,
say
but
there
it was
is one of
liquid
those that
oxygen.
does have some kind of liquid lake, and it's not water.
Yeah, I know one of the moons of Microtech definitely has a lot of water, or not, but sorry, liquid bodies.
I know one of the moons, I don't know if it's still a thing, but I remember one of the moons being, I just remember it being an extremely bright yellow environment, like sulfur yellow.
Oh, Ariel.
Had a liquid pools that were, that were bad.
No, they weren't
Don't know if
liquid.
that's
It
still
was,
a
they
thing.
had little geysers of like acid or something. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Damar's had that forever, right? Or
No.
Yella? Yella's had that.
No.
But
Selen.
the
Selen, I
liquid
think
mechanics will be really
had.
interesting.
I think it was Selen that had thermo geysers.
Gotcha.
I know
But yeah,
Yellow was
that
always
whole
just like a
planetary
barren
tech
ice
is
rock.
Yeah, it's interesting. Selen is supposed to be a volcanic,
Yeah.
an active volcanic moon.
Yeah, it's supposed to have thermal geysers and stuff. Like it does have volcanoes, 3D model and everything.
You don't
but...
notice that it is a volcano until you get close to it because the surface doesn't look like volcanic.
Yeah,
but
I've landed in one of them way back when, and then like logged out, like put my ship there, logged out there. It's great. Like this is back in like 3.8 or something. But yeah, so we got that. The Arena Commander Classic Race Mode overhaul is a just complete overhaul of all system apps in Arena Commander's Classic Race Mode. Sandbox Prison Activities. It's the same description as the one on the roadmap. Security post-Korea reactivation. Same things. I'm just trying to see if there's any new details that's not listed on the roadmaps. But so far, the only thing that is new is that it turns out Microtech and Hurston are getting rid. Aside from that, everything else is pretty much as we saw on the roadmap. Oh no, this salvage hull stripping is updated to also include hull stripping aboard the Aegis Reclaimer using its remote salvage turrets. Environmental space missions, just random. Yeah, that's going to be 3.8. Or at least the additions to. Obviously, 317.2. There is a version of 317.2 in the PTU right now. Where it's supposedly running non-stop over the weekend. The weekend is over. But notable bug fixes are elevators should function correctly. Party launching should work more consistently. Sending AUEC shouldn't disappear into the void. Unauthorized surveillance detected shouldn't fail automatically. Several major Siege of Orison fixes. Several more bug fixes. Several crash fixes. That's all I have on the PT.
Yeah, I'm really getting hungry now.
This is pretty much it, but
think about a big hot pizza.
So, oh yeah, also speaking of Siege of Orison, right now is Jumptown. It started kind of when we started tonight. But tomorrow night, August 9th, Tuesday, at 8 p.m. Eastern, is going to be Siege of Orison again, and it will run for 48 hours. So, and then there will be no more Siege of Orison. So if you have not done Siege of Orison, or if you want to do it again, tomorrow and Wednesday is last chance. You have 48 hours starting tomorrow at 8.
Considering that the PTU patch is supposed to fix some of the more glaring issues with Siege of Orson, wouldn't you expect it to come back again after that is released?
Oh, I hope so. But as far as the schedule is concerned for Siege of Orson, that's it. Like they,
okay.
like there's a schedule for it, and it's only going to be out until August 11th.
Right.
There's nothing stopping them from, like a week from now coming out with a new schedule.
Oh yeah. Well. There's nothing saying like, oh, it's going to be back up like starting Friday or whatever. But as of right now, it ends on or Thursday technically, 8 p.m. Thursday because it's 48 hours. But yeah. And okay, last but not least, Call Sign's favorite, the Ship Showdown's back.
It's never been an issue for me.
Well, no, because last year you and I did the whole review thing on the Ship Showdown, how they made an entire joke out of it with the cargo.
Oh yeah.
Which variant was it even? Was it the cargo variant or the personnel variant?
It's based on the community. I mean, I'm sure that there were some people in CIG who did not want to see the Argo cargo get voted up, but there were enough trolls in the community to push it, and then they just rode the wave.
The head of marketing for CIG is actually on record as having said, while it was going down, he was like, no, the Argo cannot win. This is bad for our business. This is not going to work. Like, no, absolutely not. And somehow, luckily, he got outvoted. And after the fact, after a week after the everything went down, he's again on record as having said, I did not realize how much money we were going to make off of that damn thing. I was wrong. That thing, we sold so much of those. Like, I need to rethink how we're doing this because of how wrong I was about it. So I totally agree that whole thing going down was totally hijacked by the players. And while in that episode, it was good that it happened. I don't want to see that happen again, but at the same time, I also want to see CIG adjust how they actually allow the selection so that we're getting different categories of ships. And in those categories, the ships are like-minded ships so that you're actually getting, you're getting selections of like, is it a small light fighter? Let's then don't have it. In other words, don't have an Argo cargo going up against a Carrack is what I'm getting at, I guess,
Well, unfortunately, if it's community driven, as we've seen with so many things, a loud minority can take over.
Yeah.
Like, how many people that actually have a paid Star Citizen account were interested in the Argo cargo? Probably a very small percentage. It's just the ones that got on the hype train or generally cared about the Argo that are the ones that affected the vote. And there's no way to get around that, unfortunately, unless you just have a large enough community that you can battle against the hype wave or the people that are just doing it for the lulz.
I agree, but if you go to a system where you're actually comparing not like-minded, but similar types rather than drastically different ones, it becomes harder for that to happen simply because if you take the previous example, if you had the Argo cargo going up against a Carrack, then people look at that and they go, well, neither one of those I think is like my choice. So at that point, that's where the person just goes, either I'm not going to vote or I'm just going to go with like the most exaggerated vote that's going to, for the lulz, is why I'm doing it. Whereas if you actually have two very similar ships that are going up against each other, there's a better chance that the person's actually going to take the time to think like, oh yeah, no, let's do a comparison between these two because they're so close. So you have a better chance of their vote actually meaning something. It could still get hijacked, but there's less of that chance is all I'm getting at.
Well, for the record, I want to say that I really don't give a shit either way. I see this as like a publicity kind of, not a stunt, but it's all about publicity and exposure, and I really don't care either way. But for those that do, the only way to have a fair vote would really be to have each ship individually be voted on and just have like a bracket system. The ones that get the most vote go to the next bracket, and those get voted on go up, and so forth. The way they're doing it now is, I mean, I don't know what they're basing the ships off of. It's probably flight time, or the ones that are get most purchased, or the ones that they think most of the people fly, or flight time. I don't know what they're basing it off of, but
Well, if it's for flight
honestly,
time and stuff like
I
that,
don't
they
care.
would have the numbers to see which ships are flown most.
Yeah,
think
they've got
they
all
do
the
that.
tracking data, but
I don't think they use it though. I think they're going for marketing. Based off of what that guy said, I think they're going off of kind of like, which one do we think is going to sell the best?
yeah, 100%. It's marketing. That's all that this event
Yeah.
is. So I really don't give a shit either way.
Hey, we got
Honestly.
something negative out of Data Machine about CIG.
You mean the valid negativity that he gave off with the not saying this isn't valid, I'm just joking around, but the stuff that he said about the bikes wasn't negative? Okay.
Oh, that was definitely
Okay.
negative. Yeah, those
Good
those
point,
need
good
some serious work.
Yeah. Oh my god, absolutely.
I'm just joking by bringing that up. Anyways, but yeah, ship show. I to be honest, I am in the same boat with that. I'm kind of like, whatever.
No,
You guys are
I
gonna do
don't
whatever
think
you're
any of
gonna
us
do.
really care. The only thing I'm gonna say about it is it does highlight an issue with Star Citizen in regards to paint, because at the end of the day, this is all for the top 4 ships getting a unique paint job during Intergalactic Aerospace Expo later this year as part of the Best in Show 29. And
I just hope they
and
come
the
up
reason
with
I
a
bring that
better
up is
paint
because
scheme.
this highlights that there's a lack of paint. If you want it, if you're one of those that want to customize your ship in game, right? Like, you know, buy a paint job for your Cutlass or whatever, you can't do that in game. Like the Cutlass,
Yeah.
despite having a lot of paint jobs, are all through the RSI website, and 2 of which are exclusive to specific events that happened in years past.
Yeah,
So-
I'm not a paint guy. Like, normally I don't care, but I will say the only paint job that I actually do like that is a selective one was the Star Runner stealth one from the doing that little like advocacy side game
No,
thing
the
that they did.
black and gold one with the gold trim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
Hey, guys.
only because that's the only other one that they have for that, or at the time that was the only other one that paint scheme they had for that ship. But other than that, I usually do not give a crap about paint schemes.
No, I'm burning through ships so quickly anyway.
I have an utterly unrelated question here. I'm not sure if this is on my end or what, but can anyone get to Google?
Because it's purple. Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
He's asking if we can get to Google.
And do a
Nope,
search.
I
should
cannot.
say.
500.
No.
That's an error.
Okay.
I just typed in
That
google.com
could not be
and
request.
I'm at google.com.
Well,
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
at
because
Google.
it's cached, but it's not actually gonna. If you do a search, does it do the search or does it error out?
Waiting. Works for me.
Oh, it's down. Oh, now it came up.
Okay.
But
Working
I will
for
say
me.
this. I will say this. I had a really weird incident last week where for a day the internet was completely out, like no connectivity. And then for the next 2 following days, it was very random on which websites I could go to. Like almost anything international was unreachable, but I could bring up YouTube and watch YouTube. So it was real weird. And when I tried to ask my internet provider about what was going on, they like shrugged their shoulders and said, "We have no idea what you're talking about."
Told you
So
to fuck off, huh?
Yep. but it's been going around, so it wouldn't be surprising if it happened again. I honestly think there's a cyber war going on in the background.
No, of course there is.
I mean, there always
Russia
is.
doing all their shit. Come on.
And China. So
Oh, good point. Good point.
I honestly am kind of surprised that we haven't seen a larger impact on the internet for civilians, and the fact that we're just now starting to kind of see it pop up here and there. I think it's only going to get worse before it gets better. But
Always
we're
does.
going off tangent there.
Yeah, I'm leaving in 8 minutes to get some food. So
Alright, so
no serious topics from this point on.
yes.
What
Okay, so rounding up and then
Probably gonna get a pizza.
end of it. Nice. Rounding up, obviously, the racing stuff. Got the new racing stuff coming with the not Mario, the Star Kart racing in Orison and hopefully other locations like Area 18 in New Babbage. And then you got the 318 stuff coming up, like everything. We're getting sand caves. We're getting more salvage related stuff. Hopefully, we're getting entity streaming and new wrecks, specifically wrecks on Daymar. New rivers, lakes, and finally the Siege of Orison event stuff ending this week. And we got the This Week in Star Citizen. We got Lore Post on Tuesday as usual. The Squadron 42 monthly studio report for July 2022 Wednesday. Inside Star Citizen on Thursday, and then Star Citizen Live Friday along with letter and Viper Vault update. So the usual Star Citizen week. That's really about it. Lloyd, catch us next Monday where we do the same Star Citizen crap over again.
Or else.
That's going to be it for now. Hope you guys enjoyed, and assuming your internet's working next week, we'll catch you then.
Guys, good show.
Yep.
See you later.
Yeah.
Drive fast, take chances.